Good afternoon. Welcome to this webinar. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this insightful webinar focusing on global capability centers in India. My name is Krishna Vij. I am currently heading the IT staffing division at TeamLease Digital and will be your host for today's session. In this webinar, we will explore the compelling reasons why India has become a favored destination for GCCs and how these centers have shaped various industries and the emerging trends in GCC establishment and growth. Speaking about industry data and insights, currently the GCC market share in India stands at $47 billion. And by 2030, it is projected to reach a staggering growth of $110 billion, growing at a remarkable compounded annual growth rate of 14%. Also, the projected number of GCCs in India is expected from 1,600 to 2,400 by 2030, with an impressive average of 115 new centers being established annually. GCCs have also impacted the nation's workforce significantly in recent years. The current workforce of over 1.9 million is expected to soar to 4.5 million by 2030. This rapid expansion not only creates employment opportunities, but also fosters upskilling and talent development, driving India's human capital to newer heights. Today, we will discuss some of the key themes related to GCCs and how they are becoming vital for businesses in driving innovation and fostering future growth. During the webinar, we encourage you all to use the chat option for any questions you might have. We will also ensure to address them towards the end of the session. It is my pleasure to introduce our esteemed panelists for today's discussion. These individuals bring in a wealth of knowledge and experience pertaining to GCCs. And of course, their valuable insights will undoubtedly enhance our discussion today. The opinions shared by our guests today are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of their affiliated organizations. So without any delay, let's welcome our distinguished panel. Our first panelist is Dr. Rajesh Punyani. Dr. Rajesh is an accomplished interim site leader at Kenvue. He has an illustrious career spanning over 27 years and possesses a plethora of invaluable experience and expertise as a GCC delivery leader. As a dedicated diversity and inclusive champion and certified professional coach, he ardently advocates fostering an inclusive workplace environment and driving impactful change within organizations. He also has a proven track record in managing complex and large-scale transformation programs, leading D&I initiatives, and Center of Excellence Management. Welcome, Dr. Rajesh.
Thank you so much, Krishna. Very happy and excited to be here. Good afternoon, everyone.
Our second panelist is Mr. Ravi Kishore Mundara. Ravi serves as the Vice President and Site Leader at Reliance. He is a seasoned IT and business professional with a strong focus on driving results, managing executive responsibilities, and governance. As a site leader for a development center, he oversees end-to-end software development and service delivery operations from India, keeping up with the rapidly evolving technology landscape. Ravi's passion lies in leading teams and driving organizational growth by implementing cutting-edge technology solutions. Welcome, Ravi.
Thank you, Krishna. Welcome, everyone. And really excited to be here and discuss with you.
Introducing our third panelist, Mr. Sunil Chemankotil. Sunil is the CEO of TeamLease Digital and has over 25 years of rich experience across diverse industries and geographies. He serves as the board member of the Indian Staffing Federation and is deeply passionate about addressing the tech talent supply challenge to drive India's growth story. His areas of expertise encompass the future of work, future of technology, talent strategy, and digital business transformation. Welcome, Sunil.
Hi, Krishna, and a warm welcome to our esteemed panel. I'm really excited to hear from them about their experience in this industry, and I'm sure that we are going to have a very exciting discussion. And welcome to all the participants as well.
So, of course, a warm welcome to all of you. We are really excited, as Sunil has mentioned, to hear your expertise and real-world insights today. Let us now delve into our engaging discussions on GCCs and their increasing significance in MNCs. So let's begin with Rajesh. So Rajesh, we have been hearing a lot about GCCs and how they are emerging as an important part of MNCs. So we would like to help our audience understand what are global capability centers and why India has become a hotbed for GCCs. And of course, would like you to throw some light on what unique advantages does the country offer to global companies compared to other popular GCC locations around the world.
Fantastic. Thank you so very much, Krishna. Very relevant, obviously topic to begin with. So good afternoon, everyone, once again. So Krishna, this, maybe 10 seconds, where my interaction and my, experience with GCC started, right? So way back in late 90s, when I was working in US, obviously the whole GCC opening up the GICs that time, as we used to call it, in-house center that was picking up the pace. And I was actually in US, responsible for sending the work from US to India, in the form of an offshoring or something. So I have seen things from, that angle. So, when I see, how things were in late 90s when the dot-com bubble burst and, offshoring was happening pretty predominantly, obviously we could see at that time there were multiple locations, multiple strategies that the organizations had at their disposal. One was, of course, the nearshoring, which means obviously from US, go to South America, go to some of the other near countries, and then see whether the offshoring can happen. But that time I could see a real, sort of a hunger and thirst in the minds of the executives of the US and European corporate, seeing India from the talent, from the intellectual talent and how the talent was being nurtured and created and developed. And we are talking about early, 2000s, when obviously things were still bubbling from an overall technology perspective. We did not have Google.com to search, a lot of other things. We did not have that kind of a technology landscape, right? Still, I could see that, there was a lot of hunger and, in the Indian mindset in terms of taking over the work. And I could see a lot of, sort of a passion in the mindsets of the executives of the, large multinational companies to, leverage India from a talent pool point of view. They didn't know what they were doing, but obviously they had one conviction in their mind that India has the capacity to do that. The young generation, the age advantage, and the plethora of the engineering talent, that the engineering colleges were producing, not only necessarily in computer science space, but obviously in the automotive space, from a research innovation space and all that. So, that is where I could see that the birds were sown into the soil in terms of how the whole, the GCC will go in. And how I have seen, obviously, how India has become the hotbed is predominantly because, there has been a structure to this madness of, sending the work over to India or, opening up GCCs. So if you see again 90s, where the rapid growth was just open up a center and start throwing the work to India in the form of whatever tasks that the, the US and European counterparts did not want to do. Now that has become, let's do more strategic work. Let's do more, business process outsourcing. Let's do more intelligent work, which the India, from a capability point of view can do that. Now, third thing is obviously the value addition and innovation, which the Indian engineering talent has been able to churn it out apart from their BAU, apart from their regular responsibilities, has been a determining factor on how India has become the hotbed. And if you see the trend, and I'm sure all of us, who are sitting in this conversation, we all know that over the period of time, how R&D, how innovation, how some of the capabilities beyond just technology have actually mushroomed across multiple GCCs which have opened up in India. And it is not just about coding, it is not just about programming, it is all about creating that new product, creating that new capability that actually the the global businesses are looking forward to, to expand their business offerings and from a customer experience perspective as well. So GCCs, obviously what they started from a cost arbitrage perspective, shedding the cost of their businesses by employing more resources, low cost resources in India, has now over the period of time become a hotbed from a perspective that GCCs are in some senses actually performing more value addition and performing more value driven and innovation and R&D work than the parent and the headquarter organizations. And I'm putting that on record because there is a lot of data, from a substantiating point of view that we can do that as well. So, I would say that India is, and I think I can safely say that I'm just setting up a new GCC in India for a new organization that I just mentioned. So, from the day one, the leadership is saying, we just don't want a location. We don't want people to be hired and then the low cost work to be thrown in. We want the functional setup, we want the business setup, and we want the non-tech setup as well. And people should be able to run 24/7 in the complex projects as well. So that's the mindset from the 90s to 2023 in the world of GCCs that I'm seeing. So skill, passion, engineering talent, location, and the government of India obviously is helping a lot in, flexible, providing a lot of flexibility in the overall, the governance structure, financial aspects of SCGs and non-SCGs. I think that is one reason, one of the reasons why India has become a hotbed for a lot of new companies to open up their centers.
Yeah. Thank you, Rajesh, for shedding so much light on this particular aspect of helping us understand GCCs and also throwing some great insights on how India has become a hotbed towards establishment of these GCCs, and also talking about how the engineering talent plus the strong education system plus what are the government initiatives that India is offering to attract more GCCs and setting up more global companies in India, and how they can expand operations and overall the market share to a diverse market like our country. So moving on to Ravi, and also would like to also throw more light on the GCCs aspect, because we are hearing that GCCs have become increasingly popular in the recent years in India. And adding on to the points which Rajesh had just mentioned, would like you to throw some light, as in, could you provide an overview of the growth and the evolution of GCCs in India over the past decade? So according to you, talking about the GCCs and multiple sectors which are setting up their base in India, so which are the key industries or sectors have witnessed some prevalent growth or presence or expertise? And according to you, which sectors are emerging in this space?
Yeah, thank you, Krishna. And it has been kind of, always interesting to hear, what Rajesh said about the story about the growth of offshoring and GCC as we are talking about today. So I have been associated for last 25 years in this industry, and like our generation, my generation, we have seen the everything, right from the Y2K to the .com bubble to the recession in the economy, and then say like the evolution of this entire GCC journey as we speak today. As you said, last decade, before that something really happened, and let me bring a focus to somewhere around 2012, 2013. During that time, the cloud bursted actually. So everybody was talking about cloud. Every organization was providing the cloud immersion training, and I also did go through those, cloud immersion training per se. And that was a hallmark of moving the outsourcing to GCC, or in the new evolution in terms of the exponentially growing the IT industry in India, so to speak. Prior to that, you can say that it was a period which was marked with maturity, the talent acquisition, captive centers building, and all of that. So there are a lot of companies who have done the spade work and really established themselves into this. And typically they were the software and high-tech or telecom companies who had been predominantly driving the initial maturity of outsourcing or GCC in the captive fashion, I would say. From 2012, 2013 onwards, it's been the digital transformation that really started taking place. And that's where the cloud computing, mobile user experiences, this technology came to the forefront in terms of adopting the Indian talent and vice versa, so that it can give back the benefit to the organization as they were looking from. So it has been the evolution on many aspects on either side of it. From the organization perspective, as beyond cost arbitrage, what can they get? And from the India perspective, that beyond just the resources and the bodies who are skilled IT, what better or what more can you do? So that has been the significant aspect, I would say. And post that, we have seen, like, last decade has been, there's a lot of development. There has been exponential growth in terms of technology, in terms of the business coming in and setting their foot in India. Typically, to come back to your point, Krishna, in terms of the industry segments, what I have seen is that for the initial period of the telecom and the software, then it became more of a finance as a vertical. Financial services really took shape, and they set up their foot, and they're still growing. Then it came the healthcare sector, which is really have their adoption of GCC and embracing the Indian diaspora, as I would say, and leveraging that for the benefit of the business. And then the rest of the other industries has really, fallen in the train. So this has been the phenomena. And going forward, I see that it's not going to be the industry specific per se or the segment specific. It is going to be, what really matters for the business, irrespective of the industry sector, because most of the Fortune 1000, Fortune 500 companies have already set up their, global capability center or global innovation center as we speak. And the future growth is going to be coming from research, engineering, and development part of it, and not just like, outsourcing the plain IT per se. That has been the case so far. So that's what I see, that in terms of the next evolution in the journey, the two things which I would add to the previous point in terms of, why it has become a hotbed also is now at this mid-level maturity, India has a multi-generation workforce. That's really giving the required balance across, both in terms of managing the business side of it, building that culture within the GCC, and leveraging the new talent and the new workforce that is coming along. And this is like, evolution, as I'm kind of, keep telling, because this is not going to stop here. It is going to evolve further. And as we move and look at the exponential technologies such as the, generative AI, which is going to be the most important technology, at least over the next few years, the GCC will also see a lot of uptake of these skills, which are predominantly at the entry-level market, or the students, the freshers, those who are coming out of the colleges, and they will get maximum opportunities in the GCC. I'll stop there, but it's kind of, very interesting topic to discuss. So those are my thoughts here, Krishna.
Thanks, Ravi. I think you've touched upon some great points today, and also calling out that the initial focus on IT and software services is now shifting the GCCs to span across various industries, like you've mentioned about finance, healthcare, e-commerce, and varied other industries. And of course, some points that you've touched about how GCCs have diversified their roles beyond moving from cost saving to moving into strategic and innovation hubs. So I'd like to ask a follow-up question to Sunil, linking it to what Ravi had also mentioned, because India's expertise brings in a lot of cutting-edge technologies and its capacity to cater to a broader range of industries through GCCs. So Sunil, my question to you is, since GCCs play an integral role in providing support functions to their parent organizations, so according to you, among the industry segments benefiting from GCCs, so which are the sectors have shown most promising growth in recent years, and what role have GCCs played in their development and expansion?
Krishna, just to correct you, it is not support anymore now. So what started as global delivery centers, then it became global innovation centers, GICs. Now we are in the phase where it is global capability centers. We should start believing that we have the capacity, we have the capability. So both capacity and capability go hand in hand in India, because one, our ancestors did fantastic job of not controlling the population. So we have a huge demography. Two is that our ancestors again did a good job in setting up a lot of engineering colleges. People cribbed when we had too many engineering colleges and the seats were not getting filled. But if you look at today, India produces 1.5 million engineering graduates every year, and also the number of non-engineering colleges, small, big, across the length and breadth of India has been set up. So today, 1.5 million engineering graduates and another 50 million non-engineering graduates pass out every year. So 6.5 million engineering graduates pass out. Graduates pass out. And if of late we are talking about STEM. So if I take STEM, we have 2.6 million graduates passing out every year. So that's the funnel which continuously keeps making our land the fertile land for talent. Apart from that, as Mr. Ravi and Rajesh said, we have veterans here who have started their journey in India, and some of them, of course, in US, journey in India to support the global centers. So from support to the complete transformation to development in India. Today, they look at India not for reaching out to do some software maintenance or some L1, L2 supports. They are actually coming to India and setting up base to research. We are doing a lot of research here. We are doing a lot of development here. A lot of products are getting developed from the initial stage to the full-blown product. So the global companies have started realizing that India is no more just cost arbitration, it is talent arbitration today. So we have moved from cost arbitration to talent arbitration. Having said that, there is definitely some cost arbitration, and we have the land, enough land available in India. We have enough infrastructure. We have enough talent available. So with all this, and government is also working hard to improve the ease of doing business and setting up of a lot of centers here. And even if the ease of doing business is not great, I think what else globally, what are the other options? Where do you go? Because the talent is available here, the population is available here. So having said all this, I think we are in the right place at the right time. And I think we have waited quite long. It's been a 2 to 3 decades of servicing some other countries. But now I think we are here, we have arrived here where the innovation will happen in India. With that, having said that, I think we have seen in the recent times ER&D space expanding hugely because of the research and development activity. If I have to quote few names, the largest automobile industries, brands have their research centers in India now. You take Mercedes-Benz, you take Daimler, you take Nissan, any of these companies, all of them have their centers here. Similarly, if you take any product, internet company or product company, their development centers are in India. If you take any banks, their development centers are in here. If you take any healthcare sector, their development centers are in India. So I'm sure that, it's not one industry. Across industries, there is a huge increase in the number of GCCs. There have been some early, adoption like the BFSI, some of the healthcare sector and consulting companies. They started early because there it is very, very high human intensive. They need large number of people. Now the centers what are coming up need not be, let's say 10,000 or 15,000 people. It can be ranging from 100 to 500 people. Very high-end engineers. So the talent transformation has happened drastically. So the amount of work what India is doing for the global companies, the parent companies from India, is very high-end, cutting-edge technology. So I would say that we will be very soon in a situation where every industry is seeing growth in GCC sectors in India.
Yeah, thank you, Sunil. And of course, highlighting and also putting so much of stress on this that GICs and GCCs are there, and plus how they're innovating, and also giving us some great numbers in terms of how the talent is getting developed so that the overall pyramid is getting stronger. And plus, we are ready for more GCCs to be established in the near future. And of course, you've also clearly explained how the cost and talent arbitration is also going to be there, which is also going to benefit in the longer run for India as a market. And plus, of course, on the government initiatives, how it is helping industries to set up more GCCs in the longer run. So moving on to Mr. Rajesh. So we also spoke about industry insights and also spoke about how the current market share of GCCs in India is from $47 billion expected to grow up to $110 billion by 2030. So would like to hear from you, what are the key factors do you believe will be driving this significant growth in the coming years?
Excellent. Thank you so much, Krishna. And again, let me just, put a little lighter point to the previous conversation. Like you mentioned, obviously, India started as a support center for some of the large business companies. And again, Sunil had his own views, and I agree. Over the last couple of decades, how we have seen is that in certain GCCs right now, Krishna and the team, India has taken so much of dominant role into those functions that now the US team is actually supporting India. How the whole tide has turned. And this has not happened overnight. And this has not happened by chance. And this has not happened by any fluke. This is all because of a very carefully thought through strategies from an engineering institution point of view. And the company is willing to take a bet, quote unquote, bet on that. And India has successfully, proven them, their faith in India. Now, obviously, what has happened in the last couple of decades, Krishna, if we have to sustain the same wave of success, obviously we need to be a little bit more cautious in terms of how do we approach that. It is always easy to reach the top, but obviously to stay on the top, we need to obviously always have a different stamina, different mindset altogether. So what I feel 3 or 4 or rather 5 major factors that I still believe, India can scale up to 110 billion market that you mentioned, of course. One is obviously no matter what, India will always remain a cost advantage, but that is how GCC started on a cost advantage. This will not remain only a cost advantage play after some time, but this will definitely remain a very attractive proposition. And we have still seen that, initially we used to say, 1 engineer in US equivalent to 3 or 4 or 5 engineers in India, but that may have come down to probably 2.5 to 3, but that is still very competitive in the overall larger scheme of things from a dollar point of view. So that will definitely, be the, major factor for us. Second most important thing is, and again, everyone has been discussing this and Sunil talked about it, the skilled workforce, the large number of engineering colleges. And we are not just talking about tech part, right? We are talking about engineering in, the hardcore engineering, finance, management institutions, the research facilities, the innovation. There is so much of large pool of skilled and qualified people who are waiting to get deployed, who are getting trained in their respective facilities. Their availability of that pool will definitely fuel the next wave of growth that India is obviously, preparing for. And I think the government of India is definitely supporting a lot of those by, that Make in India, those kind of initiatives. Some of them will see the light of the day, over the period of time because, easy to make initiatives, but obviously the fructification of that takes time. But I think that is another level of game plan that definitely will take us to the next 110 billion game plan. And again, education and training put together. The third factor, obviously, which I combine together is one, of course, the language proficiency, Krishna, and the time zone advantage. Now, English, obviously, we all know is a very widely spoken and taught in India across all, engineering or other management institutions. This is very easy for any international company to immediately think about and start opening up a center in India. They don't have to necessarily, like the way they used to invest in, the verbal skills and they used to invest in a lot of lingual skills. I don't think that has been the case over the last few years I have seen. They straight away jump into the pool. They know who are they talking to, and the people are pretty smart from an overall verbal skills perspective. And, and the next generation is obviously becoming much more smarter in terms of, dealing compared to, where I feel I started my career. So that language proficiency and, the time zone advantage, because we are so much at a center place where obviously Europe is only 4.5 to 5 hours away. US is 9.5 hours, which is, obviously not too far. And then we can be in the center, and we have been, and we will continue to be in the center of, round the clock, 24/7 operational support that we can deal with far East in China. We can deal with Europe. The Gulf is too close, and obviously US has always been pretty close to us. So that time zone advantage will always help the companies to think about their global operations round the clock without major investment into anything else. And I think, we all have been seeing the trends in the global economy right now and the business friendliness, while the rest of the Europe and US is talking about recession, and China, which was obviously riding a growth wave up until now, that is also looking at recession. India has been able to manage its own ground from an overall economic, framework perspective. In the middle, markets could be going down across the globe, but obviously we are seeing that India is still growing. And largely one factor that goes in India's market, Krishna, is India itself is a huge consumers market also. We are not just producing, we are actually consuming. Apple opening up their centers in India, obviously from an assembly point of view, we are consuming a part of this. So a lot of other chip fabrication companies opening up their centers because India and Indian mobile companies are going to be consuming a lot of that as well. So that absolutely will be another major factor that, how India's consumption power is, going to be fueling the next set of, whether it is GCCs or some of the other businesses which are coming up. And again, connecting all this from a risk mitigation, disaster recovery, business continuity planning, India serves best from an overall multi-generational skill pool, which obviously my friend Ravi spoke about. And Sunil spoke about some of the aspects as well. So if you really see all these factors, they are very ripe for us to continue to build and mature on top of this. And if we continue to play well from an overall business conditions and business friendliness and India perspective, I think 110 is just a projection. We could be crossing way above 110 billion market also, and much faster, Krishna, than what the consulting companies could be projecting.
Thank you, Rajesh, for bringing in an absolutely new perspective and helping us understand how the overall growth can be contributed and even more, and also bringing in some thoughtful insights as in how the country's talent and plus the language proficiency is helping us, reach and cross barriers across nations as such, and how India is definitely becoming a hotbed and also contributing to become a favorable business environment, leading to talk about government policies or providing robust infrastructure, or maybe looking at, how the overall establishment of GCCs can be contributed all put together. Now, adding on to your perspective, and I would also like to ask a similar question to Ravi as well, because as we heard from Rajesh that GCCs continue to expand and it also continues to proliferate in India at a fair pace. So there are, of course, a lot of strategies that are already going on. A lot of organizations are building on how to lead to this growth. So what, according to you, are the strategies that are being implemented to ensure that these centers remain agile, innovative, and adaptable to the rapidly evolving technological landscape?
Yeah, that's really an interesting add-on to the so far discussion we had. I think it's kind of getting a very good flow and attaining that real rhythm now to benefit the audience, and I think our audience is also from the various demographics, and they'll get definitely benefited of this discussion, I guess. So Rajesh has already covered a lot of things, and that definitely becomes significant building blocks for any strategy. Now, when we look at the next aspect and what's currently happening, let me give you a perspective. So I have been in the GCC last decade in various different shapes and fashion. So I was with NOSCOM, and we have started a very new industry segment itself, agri-tech in IoT. And immediately Cargill adopted and supported. And not only Cargill, there are like a couple of other companies, John Deere and many others, I can give the names, but they have been very supportive and adaptive of what work we were trying to do as part of the NASCOM initiative for India as well as globally. So then we look at what strategy need to be created is all encompassing. It's not just skill, it's not just people or a cost, but it's also in terms of building that ecosystem. And startups played a major role. Let me put it here very clearly, because if you look at it, last year, approximately $1.5 billion has been invested by the global organization and GCCs in India for startup. So it's a very significant phenomenon in terms of having that ecosystem being built and available for GCCs to build their strategies further. So this is on one side of it. Then also I have seen, for example, another areas which is cybersecurity. have set up the Cybersecurity Center of Excellence. Again, most of the top companies in the cybersecurity, such as FireEye, Checkpoint, Trend Micro, you just name it. They were immediately supportive, not just from point of view of their own GCC setup, but also how they can leverage this ecosystem in India beyond the skill and the cost for the business benefit. So that has been a strategy which is going along in terms of how, what, and why we should be doing here in India, particularly in Bangalore that time, and taking it forward for the benefit of the business. So those are the things which happened, and just gave you a very direct example that I personally involved in. Beyond that, there had been a lot of center of excellences which government has created, such as in healthcare, NDHM is there. RBI had set up the FinTech Center in Bangalore, and that gave a required push to kickstart those initiatives along with the GICs or GCCs, and building that ecosystem which further sustain that growth. Agility has always been there. I think it remains in the business as a as part of the business DNA, because without being agile, you really can't say that we are growing and we can grow. It's just not possible. So I would say that being agile is a given for any business. So those are the point of views that I wanted to kind of bring it on this point, Krishna. Also, going back to the previous point, I just wanted to touch upon some of the things which really helps in terms of the growth. So when we are looking at the growth aspect from a strategic point of view, it's the startup ecosystem which I just touched upon really helped to grow GICs in India, and it will continue to do that to achieve that 110 billion projected mark that we are looking at, or maybe beyond that. But also a cultural alignment from the standpoint of aligning to what the businesses are. There has been quite a big disconnect in some aspects that we have seen and experienced when the US leadership, they visit India, and how to align and how to kind of translate their vision and their approaches in terms of the meaningful strategies, and that will then build that sustainable growth. So culture has been very, very important factor, because that builds the required amount of trust between the two sides of the table. And in India, I would say, I have seen my peers, my teams, my seniors been very supportive, quite adaptive. And of course, there are challenges. Of course, there are, difficulties, but overcoming those quickly, overcoming and, seeing it aloud and, addressing them has been, one of the very important aspect of the journey that I have seen. So I just, stop there. And if you have any more question, I'll be happy.
I think some of the great points you touched upon, Ravi, and also brought in a complete new perspective of looking at agility or innovation, or how GCCs can, look at more adaptability from a culture point of view. Now, one thing that you've touched upon was on the startup point of view, and how the overall ecosystem is also changing with respect to GCCs, and how culture plays a very important role to foster cross-functioning collaborations and also encourage experimentation and risk-taking. I think these points definitely help us understand in the evolving technology landscape how the GCCs can swiftly respond to the overall changing ecosystem, and plus the adaptability that we're looking at towards digitization happening across the world. So now I think with these great points, I'd like to ask a question to Sunil, also linking it to the overall industry data, wherein we are talking about 1,600 GCCs are going to move to 2,400 GCCs by 2030, with over 115 GCCs setting up year on year. So considering the growth presence of GCCs in India, how is the Indian government supporting these centers and encouraging further investments from global companies?
Okay, so thanks, Krishna, for that question. First of all, how many GCCs are growing? I think now it is out of debate because the grass grows when we sleep. So now we don't need to do much to get them to start the setup here. They will set up here. As I in my initial remarks, I said that there is a lot of work happening on ease of doing business. Government is trying to do a lot of things, but India is a pretty large company, a large country. Uh, uh, we have a lot of challenges. Yes, there are bureaucratic bottlenecks. Having said that, we also are very entrepreneurial. Most of the chief ministers have already realized that we need to attract. So there is already a tussle happening between the chief minister. They go and they keep selling to the companies in US. They set up events, and then they meet up the businesses. See, if you look at the last 10 years or recently last 5 years, I'm seeing a lot of such meetings happening between the chief of the state, and when the leaders come to India, they invite them for a quick catch up. So that's the kind of and there are a lot of promises being made. There are a lot of, earlier there used to be deals getting signed, but the actual implementation was not happening. But today you are seeing that every state, if you look, if you just take Karnataka and AP, there is always a fight. Who will get the center, and similarly Tamil Nadu is not far behind. They are also setting up a lot of GCCs, and in the past it was only South which was mainly focused in the IT. Now you see Pune, you see Mumbai, you also see in the northern states, the NCR anyway was doing very well, and there are a lot of other centers which are setting up. Another important aspect what government is also pushing hard is that so far people come in search of jobs to the cities, and that has led to overpopulation in the city. And how much can you improve the infrastructure? We keep blaming governments quite often. Yes, they need to be blamed, but I think the overpopulation is a problem. If you take Bangalore, I studied in Bangalore. I know the Bangalore of 1990s, 1989. It was quite different. We don't see so many people. Now you just step out of the office, go to a tea shop, you have to wait in a queue to get a tea. So that's a kind of population explosion which has happened. And this is because people are coming in search of jobs, and there is associated jobs which get created, correct? So now is the time when governments have already realized that we have to take jobs to the people. So already, if you look at, if I take example of Telangana state, Hyderabad is the hub. Now they have started setting up hub in Warangal, in Nizamabad. Similarly, if you take Karnataka, Bangalore is the hub, but Mysore, Hubli, there are a lot of other centers which they are pushing in. Similarly, if you take Maharashtra, Pune, then it is going to Nasik and Nagpur. So there are a lot of cities which will get built, because if you take jobs to people, then what happens? People will not move to cities, and in fact, new cities will get built, because you cannot physically build a city. The cities will build if there is more economic activity happening, and that economic activity will happen if there are more jobs. So there will be more jobs created if all these centers create more centers, just not get concentrated in the cities, but spread across. Having said that, we should also look at the current state of the situation is that, the talent availability also is a very big pull, so all these GCCs are getting built in the, main cities, because there is already a captive talent available, so you can get a fast track start to your strategy or to your people. But over period, you will realize that, even in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, there will be more GCCs which will set up. So the growth of GCC is 115. I don't want this 115 to be set up only in these 4, 5 or 8 IT centers. It should be spread across the country, and that's where the governments have to play an important role. And you can reset the infrastructure development in those cities, because they are now setting up. We already have an experience of Bangalore's and Delhi's and the Mumbai and Pune's of the world, where we know that how talent can explode, how population can explode if we concentrate this GCCs in one place. So I think now governments know it very well. Already, if you look at the tier 2, tier 3 cities, they are very well built. The infrastructure is very good. And you will be happy to know that most of these tier 2 cities already have their metros and transportation systems. Whereas if you take Bangalore, we are building the metro now. So we are going through that, our next generation will enjoy this. But in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities, they're starting with a very good infrastructure. They are visualizing how the connectivity should be built, both on the digital as well as on the transportation connectivity. Airports are there. So almost everything is set up. So now if you go and set up, and the talent is already there, because as I explained earlier, the colleges are spread across India, and there is a lot of captive graduates passing out. Unfortunately, they had to move today to the cities in search of jobs, but in future, they will find the jobs in their own cities. And so that's the future I am seeing. So taking jobs to people, building more cities, setting up GCCs in a very well established or very good infrastructure is what is going to change. And that's what government is doing. So if you ask me, what is government doing for GCC? It's a very macro level things what government is doing. And the roadmap is not something which we will realize immediately in 1 or 2 years. In the next 10 years, when you look back, you'll see that, there are so many centers in the Jaipurs and the Jodhpurs of the world. And then there you already have a very good infrastructure in place, and we are not struggling like how we are struggling today. So that's where government is working on, I would say.
I think some great points.
Sunil, so maybe, what happens is like most of the time we blame the government. I just wanted to kind of bring a counterpoint in a way. Of course, what you said is right, no doubt about it. But what gets missed out always is also the good work done. So we get the feedback for something which is not right, but we don't get the feedback for something which is done right.
Yes.
Right. So if you look at it, because I have seen very closely inside the government and how it is functioning and working, every state has a skill council and a huge budget, and it is being leveraged and used by all the states. So they collaborate with all the top institutes of that particular state. If you take example of Karnataka or Maharashtra, or Karnataka IISc leads it, but they do have a lot of funding as well as the ecosystem which is available for them to build it, supported by the organizations which has been created, such as BSCI. So Data Security Council of India, right?
Yeah.
And so many other organizations. That's get kind of missed out, or it becomes hidden and we don't necessarily talk. So I wanted to bring that point along, that it is one of the very fundamental driver for the growth, which is supported by the government, and they bring it along, without which I think half of the story would be hollow, and they continue to do that.
Agree.
So another aspect on it is like every government is now putting up something like these sandboxes, wherein the experimentation is allowed and provided, which is funded by the government, so that not just the startup, but also the GCCs, their R&D setup, people, those who are working on the R&D. So it's kind of, a very good ecosystem, which is getting built for experimentation towards innovation, I would say.
Yeah.
And that's being kind of, fostered by the government. I just thought I'll add to some of your points.
Great points, Rajesh. I fully agree, Ravi. That those are the points which I missed out. Yes, there is a lot of things happening on the skill development also. So apart from, so there is a large vision on skill, on infrastructure and future of India. So the future of work and future of India are very closely related. So I would see a better infrastructure and better spread of GCCs in future with all this in going, and availability of talent in all these locations, so that people don't just get concentrated. The GCCs don't just concentrate in a few locations. I think Rajesh wanted to add some point. Yeah, you are on mute, Rajesh.
Yeah, there was some background activity in my room. So, so absolutely, Krishna, I am cognizant of the time, but I had to add one more point. And this is related to how GCCs over the last 3 or 4 years, specifically from the pandemic point of view, have, sort of reacted. And this is just adding to what Sunil mentioned from a tier 1, tier 2 and tier 3 cities. One of the major things that, of course, government has done over the last 2 to 3 years during the pandemic period, which probably went unnoticed, is how they have opened up the boundaries and walls of SEZs and made them even more flexible for people to work remotely. And, the hybrid model of working, you choose what works for you, and we are not going to be necessarily coming after you to audit you, put some compliance framework. And that has actually, given so much of confidence to the organizations that they can, sort of keep working from largely remote locations. So I'll give one quick example. There are many people in my previous organization, which I just left. They're actually working from North Kannada, Dharwads and Hublis and some of the other, places where nobody even imagined this could be working. All you need is one stable internet connectivity and maybe a good power backup, then you are up and running. So again, this goes back to the point that some of these pointers are gone unnoticed, but government has actually relaxed so much of things in the larger interest that GCCs can come. They don't have to worry about talent in specific pockets. They just have to worry about India, somewhere talent is there. Let's just open it up. I think that factor has to be acknowledged and recognized as well.
And also, they have opened up a project, which is much more important. Like, for example, 5G. I was privy to it to shape it up at Bangalore. So the GCCs are more looking for such kind of a innovative project, which is funded by the government and not just the tax SOPs.
Yeah.
And that's another point.
Yeah, that's true.
I think we've heard some great points from Sunil, Rajesh, and Ravi today, and also fostering as how government is building and playing a very important role in the overall growth and development of GCCs in India. I think there is one more aspect I'd like to, shift this focus in terms of understanding. We heard from Ravi in terms of the emerging technologies such as cybersecurity. So Rajesh, my follow-up question to you, especially on the emerging technologies, because wherever we go, we talk about digital transformation and the overall growth in emerging technologies. Now linking it to GCC, talking about AI or a blockchain or cybersecurity or IoT are integrated across various industries. So according to you, how are GCCs leveraging these technologies to drive innovation and create new opportunities in the market? Yeah.
Sure. No, absolutely. Wonderful way. And then again, the way AI has actually swept the whole industry and, created a lot of panic. Of course, this is a really hot topic right now. Now, so again, going back, Krishna, to the fundamental stuff that we have been talking over the last 45 minutes, right? It's all about, the engineering talent that people have. Now, the way GCCs is offering talent to the parent organizations, these people, they just need an idea, and then, of course, they are able to figure it out from the GitHubs, from some of the open source repositories and the, the APIs, which are, created by or given by the larger organizations. The engineering talent is so vast and so innovative in India these days that, you just give them a one problem statement. And I'll give an example of my own son who is doing the third year in computers from one of the leading universities. People are sort of sniffing the opportunity here. So my son who is in the campus, he had a problem that, the weather pattern is pretty erratic. He has to walk a lot from his hostel to his academic block. And apparently there are a lot of e-cycles and, the other vehicles which are there in the campus, but nobody knows where are they in the system, what is available, whether they can accommodate one person, two people and all that. So he just got in touch with, one of his classmates, and they started to think about, can we solve this as a problem which can be industrialized, of course. So they quickly created an app, bringing the, the inventory of all the e-cycles together, what's the capacity of 1-seater, 2-seater and things like that, connected that with a Google Map API, and then, sort of created a very small MVPs of an application, which created so much of a buzz in the system that it is actually being now taken into the overall ecosystem of, he's by the way studying in Manipal in Udupi. So Manipal Incubation Center is now taking it to the next level to create a product out of this. So, that's a kind of an engineering mindset. You just see a problem and you just stick to the problem that chalta hai. So today's engineering mindset of the IT person is all about chalta nahi hai. We'll have to take it to the solution. We will be the first one to buckle it. We have resources. We will do that. And now the open source APIs and some of the other tech things which are opened up in front of us, Krishna, it is very easy to bind them as long as we have the right mindset of the people to do that. Now, we have seen the vast potential of chatbots. We have seen the vast potential of chat GPTs. And now the moment chat GPTs have come up, 20 other interfaces have come up in the industry, which people can bind it to create a fantastic, very customer intuitive and a very, wonderful UX design as well. So, I think we still don't know the vast opportunities or the potential these tools can offer, but I think the engineering mindset is able to figure it out. And that's the reason people like Sundar Pichai, Satya Nadellas of the world, which are like alumni from India, they are banking so heavily on the IT industry in India because they know the next innovation, next product, next wave of huge, the new ways of living will be coming from India as well. So I think we're still on the, scratching the surface of everything. But I'm sure in the next few months or maybe a year or two, we will definitely know where exactly the GCCs are going to be playing a part. But everyone knows GCC is the only place where it can be delivered.
Thank you, Rajesh. This was some great points and linking it to the emerging technologies, but we also hear about a lot of tech talent supply gap as well, considering these technologies. So this is a question which I would like to first ask Sunil, and then I'd like to hear Ravi as well to add on to his points. We hear about emerging technologies. We also hear about emphasis on upskilling and reskilling in the recent years. So now talking about GCCs in India, which is already fostering a culture of innovation, which Rajesh had already pointed out across, and continuous learning among their workforce. So what, according to you, and what are the measures are GCCs taking to bridge the skill gap and ensure their employees stay relevant in the ever-changing technological landscape?
See, when it comes to talent availability for the GCCs, it goes without saying that, IT services companies have been a favorite hunting ground. Let's accept that, because IT services companies had a very good infrastructure to train the resources. They were correcting the pyramid by hiring the freshers and training them and upskilling them and making them ready. So if you, I would like to bring a point that the fresh graduates who pass out in India, the engineering graduates, they're not readily employable. It takes around 8 to 9 months to train them and make them work on the products what companies are using. So post that, maybe 1 or 2 years or two to 2.5 years, I think they jump the ship. Some of them stick with the company because there is a carrot of going abroad, US, offsite. Otherwise, they have an option to join GCCs, and that's the cycle which we are witnessing in the previous 5 to 8 years. But during that period, the number of GCCs hiring was not that huge. And there was also a reverse kind of a model where GCCs were also outsourcing it to IT services companies. So somehow that ecosystem was well balanced, and we didn't see a reason why GCCs should participate in upskilling or worry about the talent, because for them, whatever they want, their appetite was fulfilled from the available talent. But now with the increase in the number of GCCs and outsourcing moving to insourcing to some extent, most of the GCCs also now started believing that the talent is available. We have partners whom we can connect with, and we can build our own internal HR, and then we can do insourcing. So there is a lot of insourcing happening. So of the recent 100 odd companies which came in, most of them are doing insourcing. And that's the way forward, we believe. Now there will be a challenge where talent availability, the right talent, the availability of qualified graduates is not a problem in India. So we have, but who is going to train them? In the current phase where IT services have slowed down hiring, the fresher hiring has slowed down. So the impact of this will be seen in the next 1 to 2 years, because they have not hired, post COVID, in 1 year, they hired 6 lakh engineering graduates, and everybody were put under training. So they will come out now. But now in the last 2 years, the numbers have dropped to 1.5 lakhs. And this year, again, it is going to be 1.5 lakh fresh graduates who will be hired. So that leads to a point where in the next 1 to 2 years, the supply of trained graduates will be less. So now is the right time for the GCCs to participate in the upskilling of the talent. So they the new education policy which government is already pushing in, and it is in various formats depending upon the ruling government. They are naming it NEP. Some governments are naming it different because it has its own political discourse. So I feel that a collaboration between industry bodies, government and academia is very important to revise the curriculum. It's like, when I was doing my engineering, I studied Fortran, and when I came out, there is nobody using Fortran. So today also there are a lot of subjects which are being taught, and at least now it is a relevant subject which is being taught in the engineering colleges, but they don't have the practical experience. So there are 2-3 corrections which we can do. One is, of course, the new education policy, where industry, government and academia can collaborate to work on the curriculum, and so that when they pass out, they don't need to spend 8 or 9 years to get trained to be ready for employment. They can be readily placed on the projects. Maybe 1-2 years of finishing, that's it. 1-2 months of finishing should be enough. Second is that, India, unfortunately, compared to China and Germany, has far less apprentice. So if you take Germany or China, there the graduates from the second year or third year start earning while learning. In a way, it is an earning. Second, it is they also get to know about the atmosphere in the corporates, and they also get hands-on experience. In India, it is not mandatory. Of course, some of the engineering colleges make it mandatory for 1 or 2 months to just finish their project, etc. But it's not a accepted practice. You don't see a final year graduate doing apprenticeship in India. So, but I think if we there are a lot of efforts government did in the past through NAPS and NAT schemes, but unfortunately it went through its own problems, and they have to pull back a couple of schemes. But the Skill Council, as Ravi mentioned, plus in fact even the higher education department is also has come out with a lot of such schemes, and if those can be made mandatory, I think a combination of NEP and apprenticeship will do a world of good for the talent, because when they come out, you get trained resources. And also in the last budget, government also announced setting up centers for AI skilling, etc. So there is a focus. I think cybersecurity, AI, such kind of centers should be set up, plus the combination of NEP and apprenticeship. When you visualize after few years, all these efforts will conclude into getting a better pipe, and it's just not the IT services talent pipe which GCCs will look forward to. They will have enough talent, is my strong hope. It may be a very positive and optimistic view of talent availability. There is never going to be enough talent available for your demand. Then demand and supply cannot be equal in any way in any place, except for the manufacturing, where they manufacture based on the inventory requirement. But I think here these are people, so you will always have a gap, but I think we will have enough, and we will have enough talent to do good for the industry.
Thank you, Sunil.
I don't know, Mr. Ravi and Rajesh.
On that, actually, it's a very interesting topic, and but in the interest of time, I would like to touch upon very, very specific things for the, my colleagues on the call and those who are listening to this. See, there are a couple of aspects which is very, very important. Number one is your, career level. As you grow in the organization and in your career, at the respective level, you require a different kind of a skill. So it's a continuous and ongoing learning. And I think GCC are already, at the top of the game, considering whosoever other service providers, etc. in the market. They have gone even beyond their parent organization to ensure that the respective career level in terms of competency building and the skill building is given either in the collaboration of the institute, respective institute, or in-house training on the respective skills and as required. Second point is we are in the 4th generation of outsourcing, I would say, wherein there are 2-3 skills which are very important, such as large language model or LLM, or based on which the ChatGPT and the new age AI is going to work. So this is very important for our younger generation or the new upcoming workforce to embrace this and have that ready with them. The other skills which are like, the transformational skills which are required, like I'm talking about the IT and digital transformation, which is mostly the cloud, customer experiences point of view, or the digital. So they are given that, you would have it in the mid-level of a career. If you don't have it, then I think you already, missed the bus. And the last and very important thing is like the data science and upcoming skills on which there is a huge banking by the GCC, by the businesses as to how India is or how it has been evolving, and it is evolving in the right direction. But it's important to touch upon that and give and emphasize that there is going to be a huge requirement on these three skills, and we cannot ignore that. So, that was the point of view. I quickly wanted to bring it along besides what you said, Sunil. Thank you.
Yeah. And Krishna, just one, and I know we are past time, but I'll just take maybe a very quick 1 minute. So while Sunil and Ravi mentioned, what needs to be, taken up from a training point of view, I think a couple of things from my perspective. How do we make training and how do we make upskilling very exciting and interesting from an overall mode of delivery point of view? How, the today's generation is all, and again, we're talking about people who are in the early game plan of their career, right? How do we gamify the learning? How do we make it so much interesting for them? And these people don't need the conventional ways of learning. And post-COVID, obviously, we have seen people are taking global online courses from MITs and IITs and IIMs without even leaving their seat, right? How do we make those channels more easily available and accessible to them? And they can pick up anything because this is a very smart generation for sure. But now, obviously, how do we make sure that they constantly feel motivated to keep learning and not just for the sake of learning? And how do we give them practical venues to channelize that learning into creating something more experience for the industry, market, consumer, or anything? I think what Ravi has absolutely clearly called out the data science and analytics of it, and Sunil did. But how do we actually make it more? Because game is something which the latest generation obviously understands. So how do we gamify? How do we incentivize them to learn is obviously something that should be another focus area. Just wanted to bring it up.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the great insights, Dr. Rajesh, Ravi, and Sunil. And I also can see that most of the questions that our participants have also asked have been very nicely answered. And also in the interest of the time, we would also not be able to take further questions, but we will also try to respond to the responses by reaching out to our panelists and also answer to you over an email. So as we conclude, we are truly witnessing the transformational impact of GCCs on India's growth story. We heard from our panelists how the rapid expansion of GCCs in India can be attributed to various factors to make the country an attractive destination for global businesses. We spoke about collaborative environment, government policies, and the overall technology infrastructure that provides a solid foundation for India as a country to set up more GCCs and can be attributed to its growth. So, also bringing in and touching up so much of points towards the talent arbitration, offering skilled professionals, and as well as competitive cost has proven advantageous for many organizations. So I'd like to thank our esteemed panelists and our participants for joining us today and sharing such an insightful insights on various topics and various touch points during the webinar, which has given us an understanding on the immense potential of GCCs in shaping India's future. I'd like to thank each one of you for taking out time and giving us such an insightful discussion to all of us. And thank you so much, and you have a wonderful day ahead.
Thank you so much, Krishna. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely day.